Hi, people. Welcome to a new episode of Vlad's Politik, so meaning Vlad's politics in Swedish. And in this case, I wanted to give you a special episode because recently, or let's say around 2 weeks ago, I actually went to vote because the general elections in Sweden took place on the 11th of September. So in this special episode, I want to give you some insights, some information, some facts that are, let's say, less known, less mentioned, less familiar in public debate or in the overall, let's say, media reporting, especially if we speak now about larger, more established, more developed media. If you now speak, for example, about New York Times or Politico Europe, Financial Times, Washington Post, The Guardian, and so on. So for the start, I want to tell you that, and this is also based on my experience, but also on some general developments in Sweden, is that when you vote in Sweden, and this is mainly, if you're not voting as a citizen, you vote at 3 levels at the same time if you go to an electoral station. So then this is why you can see 3 envelopes on the left side of the photo, because you vote to be represented at your local level, so in your municipality, at a regional level, which in my case is the whole Stockholm region. So not only the Stockholm city, the Stockholm municipality, but greater Stockholm, so to say, the whole regional area. And of course, you vote for being represented at the national level, so the national parliament, Riksdag, as it is the case in Sweden. And being able to vote is quite I would say very easy. I will publish an article in the video description so you can read more about that, because basically you get your voting card from a government agency, and elections are always, or in principle, taking place second Sunday, so second week of September on a Sunday. And this means that people in general, they really have enough time to be able to go to vote, compared, for example, how the situation can be in United States of America. So, all right, let's go on with the episode. First up is regarding the public welfare or the welfare state. Now, the thing is, in my opinion, what's one of the problems in Sweden is that a very popular perception or popular understanding or beliefs is that the welfare state, the function of the welfare state is somehow to give, from the rich to the poor. So the government collects money through taxation and makes redistribution, shares the money, let's say, through different programs and fundings to those citizens or residents that are in need, that are considered to be more poor segments, parts of society. However, the thing in Sweden is that according to both private and public studies, is that it has been shown that the current welfare state model in many cases is more seen to be more beneficial or better for those let's say citizens who are categorized more or less as middle class. It can be lower middle class or upper middle class. But anyway, that basically the welfare states ends up in some kind of like a socialism for the rich behavior, that more welfare in certain areas actually goes to those who are already more, let's say, considered to be more privileged or better off economically. I know that there's, for example, in America, there's recently been a lot of discussions about President Biden canceling the student debt, that one of the main parts of criticism towards the actions of President Biden has been that canceling of student debt is mainly kind of benefiting American citizens who are already kind of seen as economically wealthy or more or less are middle class. And also that most people who study in America, like at university level, have middle class background, not like working class or, let's say even poor segments of society. And it's a similar situation in Sweden, for example, that most people who take study benefits, including myself, I did it during the last decade. So most of us who do that or who have done that are coming from, let's say, more or less kind of a middle class background, not like working class, not, that our parents are factory workers or harbor workers or similar. And for example, where I'm living in a municipality called Täby, which is considered to be one of the absolutely, richest in Sweden per capita, by number of economic activity produced, by number of, let's say, millionaires. So the thing is that in more, let's say, richer municipalities of Sweden, there's a benefit called like parental insurance, but it's also used to promote like gender equality. So the idea is the government gives some extra money to fathers to stay with their children at home. So the idea is that the mothers can do more work, and this will kind of promote gender equality. Now, this type of benefit is usually more popular or used by people who are living already in more richer parts, more economically developed parts of Sweden and municipalities. And one of the reasons why I'm telling you this is because during every elections, there is a very big kind of competition or some kind of a contest between political parties, like who's going to promise, who's going to offer, deliver more welfare. And one of the problems, as I see here with the welfare state, is that it basically leads to political parties competing in a way where they say that, if you vote for us, we will give you more welfare. It's a way for them to, in one way, to be able to buy votes. And it's very typical, as it happened now during these elections, that the government or the party that's in government, in this case it was the Social Democrats, that before elections, you are providing higher pensions and promising to kind of deliver more. And it's a problem, I would say, for democracy, because then it triggers voters to vote for a party that is kind of promising to basically spend more money, even if that money in this case is considered to go to those who are kind of already more or less doing economically good, so to say. So be aware of ideas or opinions that the welfare state is always about giving from the rich to the poor, because it can actually be the opposite in different cases. Another aspect of the Swedish elections I wanted to present is when it comes to political parties that are outside of the parliament, or political parties that are mainly represented at local level. So political parties that only exist in different municipalities, they don't have any ambitions to ever enter the Swedish parliament, to go at the national level, not even to be at the regional level, so to say. So in this case, there are several parties. More than 100,000 people now in Sweden voted for political parties that are outside of the Swedish parliament. And one of the parties that had the best results, they got almost 30,000 votes. So 30,000 votes, is a party that's called, in Swedish it's called nyans. It means shade, like 50 Shades of Grey. So this is a party considered to be, according to political scientists, to be partly an Islamist party. So a party that has Islamist ideas, that, for example, is taking inspiration from Turkey, that's governed by dictator Erdogan. And this is a party that has very much been focusing on promoting itself as a party for Swedish Muslims. That they are gonna, for example, they say that they want to to use the Swedish government. So if they enter the Swedish parliament, they will advocate that Muslims in Sweden become recognized as a national minority. And they also want to prohibit, they want to pass a law to prohibit, for example, burning Quran in public spaces. So it's a party considered, as I say, to be an Islamist party. party that has making proposals that are not in line with democratic values, and also as a party that is kind of very left-wing in economic terms. I mean, they also want a bigger welfare state and more government control. So it's not like I favor the party. I'm just saying what it's presented about the party in science and in opinion making, so to say. On the right side and down below, you can see examples of political parties that are more active, let's say, on the local level. So there is one party here on the right side. It's called 24/7. It's a very kind of a funny name. It's apparently a party in the municipality of Varberg, which is in, let's say, southwestern Sweden, around the west coast of Sweden. And it's considered to be like a left-wing populist party, but mainly focusing on healthcare sector with different proposals. They think that there are some problems in the healthcare sector locally, but they have this kind of name 24/7. So it's a kind of manifesting that the welfare state should function all the time, so to say. Then on the left bottom, there's a party called, if I translate it, so it's called Partiet, which means like island party. But it's not about some, exotic island or something touristic. But there is a municipality here in the Stockholm region called Ekerö, so it means Ekerö Island. And the island party is very active in this municipality. And in this case, they have a poster which is kind of connected to maritime or, let's say, sea-based transport. So it's about possibilities for residents of the municipality to be able to use kind of boat transport in order to travel to other parts of Stockholm. And also to the right, there's a party that's called Nykvarnspartiet, which means like Nykvarn party. Nykvarn, it's a municipality also in Stockholm. I think here south of Stockholm, and it's very typical that local parties all have a name that's including the name of the municipality where they are active. So this is a way also for many, let's say, for residents of municipalities to really recognize if this is a local party or not. So, and as I mentioned earlier, a little bit more than 100,000 people voted for political parties outside of the parliament for their, let's say, national level representation. I'm not sure how many Swedes voted for local parties in different municipalities, but considering that Sweden has around, or let's say 290 municipalities, and in many of them people can, residents can vote for a local party if they are not satisfied with other parties, or if they think that this local party is kind of representing them and comes to certain issue or problem or similar. Because usually one of the main reasons why local parties are being developed is it has usually something to do with education or healthcare or transport. So something that people at the local level care about, so to say, or feel affected by. And the last thing I wanted to tell to you, and I'm a little bit disappointed this has not been mentioned more in like bigger or more developed media, like bigger papers like The Guardian or Washington Post or Die Spiegel or something like that. So many people, what I've seen, like for example on Twitter, but also in some media articles or several media articles, many people like from both left, center, and right have said things that they think that these elections in Sweden were like the worst ones ever when it comes to political communication. That these elections were, let's say, very not so inspiring. That there were almost no visions or visionary storytelling. That there was not that political parties that were not like communicating so much about what kind of society they want to create and establish and contribute, to being developed, but that the political parties, and I'm saying the parliament, were overall, or like in the majority of cases, just focusing on communicating about certain issues, certain policy areas, number of years for punishment, or number of levels, or taxation levels, or number of money they wanted to spend on welfare. But the recent elections in Sweden were everything else than a, let's say, visionary, meaningful, inspiring, more, let's say, like how to say, more developed in terms of telling stories and making inspirations, so to say. And this is also my conclusion from what I've seen in public debate, but also when I've been reading different proposals from different political parties and following how they communicate. And I think it's a really big problem, because visions and ideas are important to shape the future, and the best way to shape the future, to predict the future, is to shape it, or to create it. And if politicians and political parties are not able to do this, or not willing, or not interested, then there is a problem. If you now speak about representative democracy, then I would say this has to be done more from the bottom up, in a decentralized way, by individuals and communities directly, so to say. So yeah. So all right, so this is what I wanted to tell you about in this special episode covering the recent general elections in Sweden. So thank you very much for listening. Please follow my channel, subscribe. Please also read the article that is, or the articles that are posted in the video description. And also please make some comment. I will be very glad to answer it, regardless if I agree or disagree with your opinions. So thank you very much, and have a nice day. Ciao.